What will running look like in 2026?
We are making our predictions on the biggest trends in running in the new year, and some of them might surprise you.
Our first prediction is the rise of AI training. So this year we've seen a lot of folks using things like Runna. I used one called Two Peaks. People are using ChatGPT. And I think that we're going to continue to see athletes lean into virtual training. And as a result, I think we're also going to see more athletes being injured.
I agree with this. I think some AI training can be effective. I'm not saying it's as good as in person, but there are also some in-person, options that aren't as great. So, it is a bit of a balancing act, but I think that you have to really go with what's tried and true. And really, if you are not educated on what is right for you, this is where it gets real tricky because you could be launched into volumes and intensities that you have no business doing.
Yeah, and that's the biggest issue, I think, with our AI training that I've seen is that it scales volume and intensity too quickly for most runners, which is what is resulting in the injuries. So hopefully we'll see these things continue to improve, but also I think that we might see people by the end of 26, and this is a future prediction, lean back into in-person training.
Where I see the majority of athletes doing the AI, kind of curiosity. Unfortunately, it is with our beginner, intermediate runners that maybe haven't used a plan or looking for something semi-custom. And the athletes that are more intermediate, advanced know, I probably shouldn't be doing XYZ, so I'm going to follow something different. So I really hope that it's the beginner, intermediate who figure out how to do it a little bit more safely so that they avoid things like burnout and injury early on into their career with running, right? Because our job as coaches is to get you to be running and moving as long as possible. We want you running marathons when you're 80. If you blow yourself up, your first 5 years of getting into long distance stuff, it's a lot less likely that you're going to have that as a goal, as an outcome. Number 2, running influencers. These are everywhere. I can't tell you, it's almost like advertising now on my feed. It's like, okay, enough. But these are visible public figures that are runners, that are sometimes coaches. I don't think this trend, unfortunately, is going away anytime soon, but I do think that our tolerance to it may be. So I think we're going to continue to get run influencers in your face. But I do see athletes now craving, and I hope this is the shift with run influencers, craving more real type bodies, craving learning things like lower mileage and how it can work instead of the typical, I got to get to 60 miles to run a sub 3-hour marathon or whatever that kind of recipe is of the week. I'm excited to see more that is shared about kind of the variability of training through our run influencers, and not just showing the cookie cutters and the good days only.
Yeah, I think with social media, this is obviously just the evolution of advertising in general. And so a lot of our run influencers are being paid to promote certain products and certain training styles or certain aesthetics. So I also agree. I hope that we see more real bodies. I also think that going back to the top one of AI being AI influencers are emerging.
Yeah.
And so there are accounts out there that might not even be real people, that might be avatars of people.
That is so disturbing on so many levels.
It's so disturbing, but it's not just in running.
And it's not going away.
And it's definitely not going away. So we have to be cautious. And, the tip for viewers and listeners in 2026 is to be discerning about who you're following and what advice they're telling you. Because to your point, a lot of them don't have certifications. And just because something works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Our third trend that we think is going to happen in 2026 is the running shoe evolutions. Now, this happens every year. We see things change because, these companies have to sell us more shoes. And so what are they going to do that's different and new? Last year, we saw the rise of the Super Stack shoe.
Yep.
And that it's
chunky and light.
Yep. Super cushion, big chunky shoes. And this year in 2026, I believe that we are going to see 2 different versions of shoes that I've already seen previewed. One is without laces. So these are the ones that are sort of like boots that you slip into.
But I have never heard this before. Of course, Coach Chris has his finger on the pulse. on this way more
So
than I
wait,
do.
On.
But is it high or low?
On actually just previewed them at a Running USA event, and it's just over the ankle.
Okay.
And it
So like
is
a mid.
a boot that you slip into. So it is no laces, and it's kind of just formed around the shoe or around your foot. So I think that we're going to see some of those. Now, those ones I don't think will be as popular. But what will be popular in 2026, I predict, will be gravel shoes.
Another thing I don't know what you're talking
So
about.
gravel shoes are hybrid shoes. They're not quite as chunky and as luggy as our trail shoes.
Which are heavy. Trail shoes are heavy. I love them, but they're heavy AF.
Yeah, so it's a hybrid trail and road shoe. So it has some traction, enough for gravel, but not necessarily the technical, terrain that you might need on trail running.
And do you think there's going to be like a drop down on websites for gravel shoes?
I believe that we are going to see a subsection of trail shoes that is called the gravel shoe, and I already know that there are multiple companies that are unleashing these, including like big name brand like Adidas has a 2026 model of gravel shoes specifically that is coming out. So.
But okay, so if we think about how trails work, this makes sense because when someone goes from road to trail, a lot of times they do a multi-track, which is a path that's wide enough for multiple bikes. That's why it's called multi-track, right? If it's one bike, it's called a single track. So that's a lot usually harder, more technical of a terrain. But the multi-track that they usually start off on for a beginner trail runner is usually gravel.
Yeah. So this goes into our fourth prediction, which is the rise of trail running in 2026. I think that we're going to see a lot more trail races and the trail running community be more of a focus for the running industry. And this is kind of, able to be predicted when we have companies like Nike really leaning heavily into their trail gear, not just their shoes, but also their clothing lines and that sort of narrative around running. So I think that trail running is going to become even hotter in 2026.
Yeah, people do want, and we know this, people want to be in nature. They want to have something experiential. We know that it's good for us, a la Nature Fix. If you're not joining in our Nature Fix runs, you should. We have them about every 2 to 3 weeks. They're free. You get your Nature Fix on, you're happier for the rest of the day, week, month, maybe a stretch, but it definitely gives a great pickup. I totally agree with this one. I think that, we've seen more trail races pick up, and then also we've seen the trail races grow, like the race itself, and they're capping faster, which is all an indicator of, for lack of a better word and very punny, attraction in the industry, which I'm psyched about.
Yeah, and I think, it really does kind of goes back to the top of AI and this artificial life that we're living, and people just need to get outside and touch grass.
They do.
And so I really think that we're going to see more of those in-person experiential, one thing that trail running events do great is that community focus and that sort of party environment that I think is a little bit better than marathons and half marathons,
absolutely.
right? The community is just different in trail running. So I think that people are really seeking those sort of experiences right now.
Yep. Next up, going in a new direction, HRV. I feel like as coaches, this is one we hear over and over and over, and we are hearing it in increasing amounts. We will see this metric continue to be captured. I do think that it's also going to be refined with wearables. What is HRV? If you don't know what I'm talking about, it is heart rate variability. It measures the tiny differences in time between each heartbeat. So like it's different than heart rate, which obviously tells you beats per minute, which is a very simple thing, right? Which is literally catching the bop, bop, bop. HRV looks at that beat to beat variation, what's going on in between them. And that variation it does tell you a lot about how recovered you are, how stressed are you, how ready are you getting sick? Or how ready are you to train at volume or at intensity? It's kind of a window into your nervous system status, which people are probably also going to get more into. I think this is going to be more talked about. I think athletes are more in tune to it. I think a lot of wearable companies are, I don't want to say pushing it as a metric, but they're talking about it more as something that almost how heart rate was like 15 plus years ago. This is now how HRV is being talked about. But I want to give a word of caution on this one. One, it's not a perfect capture. We don't have wearables that capture it well for everyone all the time. So, you have to wear it when you sleep. But because of that, your wearable doesn't always have contact unless it's like an Oura ring. But even that, it's not going to be perfect. It is a much more refined data point than a straight up heartbeat from your actual heart rate. So just know that when you're looking at this, we're going to capture it over date. We think of it of like individual data points over a long amount of time. Like I know more about my athlete's HRV after we've been capturing it for like 3 months. That first week, I'm like, just not ignore 100%, but let's look at it out of curiosity and not like, oh my gosh, live and die by it. Because I will tell you, people freak out. They see, oh my God, I did 15 points. And it's like, well, is it that, or did your watch maybe come out of contact with your wrist, for 30 minutes while you were sleeping? And you just don't know. So until things get really dialed in, just use it, I don't want to say loosely as a metric, but have a little bit more curiosity and don't be freaking.
With people's renewed interest or new interest in HRV as being a key metric in terms of their overall wellness and their training, I think this will keep these companies relevant through 2026.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I also think we're going to see some pulling apart of brands that are better and worse at capturing HRV, which I really hope comes to light, because it will help athletes become better versions of themselves, better humans, better everything. But we got to have the one that measures it the best at the forefront of that. All right, 6th trend is sustainable innovations. I know we already talked about shoe stuff, but this is one that I think people really have their ear to the ground. You see world marathon majors have sustainability experts in them. You see sustainability in a lot of, especially trail races that are zero garbage, like you bring your own cup, you bring your own flask. So we know too that runners are really into investing in things that last longer too, which I love. Like I love spending money on something and having it. I mean, some of my base layers are 10 years old, right? Yep. Like, and they're still just as good as when I first got them. So, but on top of that, we also know that we like to be eco-conscious too. So brands are focusing on this all the way from like shoe constructions to garments, sustainable materials, taking, PFAS free performance textiles, making sure that they are good for you, good for the environment, and going to last forever. I do think the idea of that super light, super fast pack out foam, it's not that it's a thing of the past, but people want things to last a little bit longer, especially in this economy. I think there's, if you're going to make the investment, they want to be able to use it. So they are going to start to want shoes that want extended use, more miles, not necessarily heavy, but that coupled with some sustainability claims, I think that makes a pretty sellable product in the next year.
Absolutely, especially for these companies that have spent so much time marketing their super shoes that are essentially one race shoes.
Yeah. But when you get down to it, yeah.
And when we're looking at this economy, this environment that we're in right now, people do want things to last longer. And if you're thinking about the people who are going to get benefits from those shoes that are for one or maybe a race and a half, right? Those are the elite runners who can spend $300 on one race for a set of shoes.
Or they're not paying for their shoes.
Yeah. But for the, most of the runners that are out there are going to be using something that is a little bit more durable, a little bit more long lasting, and that's what they're going to be looking for. So I agree with this one. We've seen, brands like Nike with their Move to Zero line.
Yep.
Like this,
even their shipping has changed.
Yeah, which I love. Which
is
great.
Same.
Yeah. So this is what I'm really excited about. This is one of the best innovations for 2026 is this eco-conscious mindset. All right, our 7th trend for 2026 and our final one here is social running. And so we think that there's going to be a real leaning into and highlighting of running as a social activity. There's been this sort of drive for high performance for quite a while, which it kind of speaks to the super shoes.
Yep.
And the rise of the carbon-plated shoe. But I think that a lot of runners are now leaning into running as that social activity, as a way to be in community and more for fun. And I think that, I hope that we see companies also marketing to that group a little bit more.
I agree with that.
We've seen the rise of running clubs over the last several years, and I think that that's going to sort of level off. But I do think that we'll see more social running activities, whether it's grassroots races and events or just more social runs like Read and Run. Things like that.
I think we are still in the middle very much of a running boom. I think that the social piece of it is a huge reason that people start doing it. It's how you meet people. It's maybe how you meet your boo. That makes me excited for the future because that's just creating more and more runners, which is just creating better and better, healthier people. So as long as we can responsibly keep them in the sport and develop them through the years, this funnel and the social stuff I'm all for it.
Yeah, and if we get more running influencers who are showing diverse body types and diverse goals, right, not just your elite high-performing athletes, it's going to open up space for more social runners, and I think that we're going to see more people and more groups blending fitness and fun.
Yeah, which really, everybody wins.
That's right. All right, those are our predictions for 2026. We also want to hear your predictions, so go ahead and leave them in the comments, and we'll see who's right. And if you're excited about the new year and the type to make resolutions, check out this episode right here, 5 tips to keep your resolutions so you can crush your New Year's goals.